Nothing's like squats. You can do leg presses, but why? Why do an inferior movement? Why do a movement that looks good, that produces hardly any results? I mean, there's a reason people don't squat. It's hard. It's hard.
Okay, that video has got me thinking. I posted that on social media, on Instagram, and it went pretty viral. And the reason why it went viral is because it defies many people's belief systems. A lot of people nowadays are saying squats are bad for leg development, yet we have someone like Tom Platz, who has arguably the best quadriceps in bodybuilding history, swearing that squats are the king of exercises. And not only that the squats are the best, that the leg press, the way that he speaks about it is as though the leg presses are a terrible exercise because they're easy, they look showy, and save them for someone else. Now, here's the thing. I love a squat. You know that. I'm a power lifter, and it's the main exercise of my sport. But when it comes to building muscle, I understand something a little bit different. And I study, if you haven't noticed, I study people's body positions and their proportions and their levels of mobility and the techniques that they use to perform various movements and the results that they achieve because of the way that they move. And when you look at someone like Tom Platz and the way that he does his squats, you look at it, and when you understand what we're looking for, his technique is perfect for quadriceps development. Some of the things that we look for is he has long torso, short femurs, so that upper thigh bone, as opposed to people with long femurs that complain that squats are bad exercise. It's like, yeah, it is a bad exercise for that individual, but for someone with short femurs, the body position that you see Tom Platz getting in, I need to use equipment to be able to achieve. So what's that equipment? I need to use, I call this a stiletto squat. It's a heel elevation where I elevate my heels so that I can sit in this bottom position where my hamstrings press up against my calf. Tom Platz doesn't need any special footwear. Like when he just sits on the ground, like that's the position he's able to achieve because he has the perfect proportions. I'd say that I'm kind of somewhere in between. I don't think that I've got long femurs or short femurs. I'd say I'm somewhere in between. Then you get people with long femurs and short torsos. Those are the ones that typically fold in half when they do a squat, and that's how they look when they do a squat. And there's very little knee bend, and they need to fold so far forward to balance that barbell on their back so it lines up with their midfoot. So that's how you achieve balance with a squat. When you have short femurs, you can be more upright and sit ass to grass. When you have long femurs, you cannot. However, I don't want to say you cannot. You can, but you need to do what I'm doing, which is elevate the hell out of your heels and understand how you can manipulate your stance in the bar position so that you can make the squat a good quad builder. Like that's how you want to look to make sure it's a good quad builder. So come on side view. To make sure that you're building quads, hamstring pressing against calf. So that's taking the knee joint through full range of motion, flexion, which is a full stretch of the quads, and extension. Versus people that can't bend their knees as much, I've got a more acute hip angle, which means I'm using a lot more hip joint and less knee joint because my knees aren't bent as much, right? So those that can achieve kind of like this bottom position in a squat are typically the ones that squat and build good quadriceps. And those that cannot usually say, like people that squat like this will say squats are bad for quad development. They're kind of both true, but you have to understand they're kind of also both not entirely true. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of each. I don't think that leg presses are bad. I think that the combination, and this goes with everything. Every time you hear people say, what's better, squats or machines, or free weights versus machines, or isolations versus compound, or high bar versus low bar, or whatever it is, whenever there's a comparison, usually, I'm sure you'll find an example where this is not true, but most times when there's a comparison like that, the answer is a combination of the two. I love a squat, and I think it's crucial. I also love a leg press, and I think combining the two is probably one of the smartest things that you can do, whether your goal is building quads or building strength or whatever. They're just great exercises for whatever reason, building knee health, hip health, bone density, all of those great benefits associated with building strength and health and longevity and all of those things. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you my leg session. And while I do my leg session, I'm going to talk about the techniques that I use to build a certain muscle, or whether it's to build strength, or the way that I position my body, so that you can have a better understanding of how you can get the most out of your leg training. Starting off with my high bar stiletto squat. You've probably, if you followed me for a while, you've probably seen me do this exercise before. Excuse my shoulders, I've got very bad shoulder mobility. This is what Tom Platz looks like without a heel elevation. So he's able to achieve that depth, and that, not just the depth, but that upright torso position. That's what you need. You can go really, really deep, but then you're leaning really far forward. The further forward you lean, the more your hips come into play. So the more upright you are, the less your hips are on. The less your hips are on, the more the other muscles have to work. The other muscles being quadriceps. So Tom Platz achieves that position. And same with, if you ever have a look at the best Olympic weightlifters in the world, they have those proportions as well. They are built for the sport. Being upright and having great mobility for the hips and the ankles, being in this position is an advantage for catching huge weights overhead, which is the clean and jerk and the snatch. And as a result, go and have a look at all the best weightlifters. The best weightlifters have those proportions, and they all have very, very, very well-developed quads. And a lot of people say, yeah, squats are good for quads because look at the best weightlifters. It's like, yeah, is it that they're doing squats, or is it they're doing squats with those perfect proportions? You need both. Anyhow, if you don't have those proportions, like me, that's what this video is about. I'm going to teach you how to manipulate your body as well as how to use different type of equipment and setup so that you can build muscle, build strength, and get the absolute most out of your leg training. So I'm going to do another set of this. I like to warm up properly. And for me, warming up properly means repeating sets until I feel comfortable. See this heel elevation? I prefer a plate than those squat boards. When I use a squat board, which I have, like they're good. However, the difference between the squat board is this, or slant board, whatever you call it, it's pointing in that direction, which means for me to use it, I have to have my feet straight, which kind of works, but my feet don't really want to bend that much straight. I want to push my knees out slightly and therefore point my toes out slightly, however you do it. Now, if I have my toes out on this slant board, which is pointing straight, my ankles are caving in. Do you get it? I don't want my ankles to cave in. I want to be stacked and aligned. Whereas when I use a plate, the roundness of the plate allows me to angle my feet and maintain that alignment so that I can have my knees out, which is where the hip joint naturally wants to go, without my ankles caving in. So when I do this heel elevated squat, I definitely prefer the plate over the slant board. All right, what I'll do now is I'm just going to go in 20 kilogram jumps. So my warm-ups are the same as always. I start with an empty barbell, then I go 60 kilograms, and then plus 20, plus 20, plus 20, plus 20. And then the more the weight, the heavier the weight, the less the reps. So when I do empty barbell, I did like 2 sets of 10. Then I did 2 sets of, I don't even know how many reps I did on the 60 kilograms. And then I'll get to a point where I'm just doing single, 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 single. And the objective today is to work up to 200 kilograms on a stiletto squat. You know, I think 3 reps is achievable. I think it'll be hard, but I think it's achievable. And that's what the goal is, 200 kilograms for 3 reps. But then I'm going to show you another squat technique, which is, you know, part of my program is, and the way that I train everybody is I split the squats up into 2 categories. When I say squats, I call it the squat pattern, and a leg press and a hack squat and a pendulum squat are part of that squat pattern. And the 2 different patterns that I categorize them in is a knee dominant squat pattern, which is what I'm doing now, and a hip dominant squat pattern, which is what I'll always use, you know, as balanced as an amount as possible. So if I do, you know, the total volume of 5 total sets in a week of quad dominant, I'll do 5 total sets of hip dominant. So it's a balanced amount of hip developing strength and knee developing strength. And I'm going to do that with the barbell squats. And then after that, I'm going to show you how I would do the same thing with a leg press. Next set, 80 kilograms. A common thought with this exercise that a lot of people mention when they watch me doing it is, oh, if I did that, my knees would explode and all of these things. Now, here's what you have to understand. If all I did was shallower squat my whole life, like low bar squats only, and I never challenged my knee joint through that extreme end range of motion, they would probably be incredibly weak in that position. And if I tried to match the weight with my low bar squats and this high bar stiletto squat, it probably would aggravate my knees, but that's not what I do and that's not what I've done. Like everything, if you're unfamiliar with a new exercise, start light and gradually build. It's a totally different exercise. And actually that's something that I'm gonna do, is if I work up to whatever weight that I'll do with a stiletto squat, I'm gonna shift it over to a low bar squat so that you can see the strength discrepancy. So I'll do the same weight for stiletto and low bar, and you'll be able to compare the strength difference. So does it hurt the knees? Well, it would if you went all out on the first session, but if you gradually build strength in that area, not only does it not hurt the knees, but it strengthens the knees so that you don't run into problems. All right, top set time, 200. It's funny because my videographer said, that looks easy. I'm sure it does, but it doesn't feel that way. So for me, it's kind of like what a lot of people look at is the position. I'm holding the position nicely, which translates to, oh, that must be easy. But actually I'm spending a lot of energy to make sure that I don't change technique. So I stay nice and upright and really focus on driving with my quads. It's very easy to kind of go like, oh, you know, lift it, let your hips come up so you can use your strong back and hips. But that's using wrong muscles. So the more upright you are, the more you're forced to use your quadriceps. So anyway, whether it's easy or not, I don't know. I'm kind of like numb to that. It feels hard, but whether I can do it or not, I know I'll get 200 for the first rep, but the goal is to get 2 more reps after that. So I think I may need a little bit of music as motivation because it's going to be hard. Okay, 3 reps. I'll admit it, that last rep, I bitched out on the pause. I felt a bit of a loss of balance. I came forward, so I was like, whoa. So I kind of panicked a little bit, which happened. And then when it came up, it actually came up very strong. Let's have a look. Good form. A little bit of, like tipping forward slightly, felt a bit off balance. That's where I lost confidence, and then I bitched out on the pause on the third rep. But then it came up easy. So I look back and it's like, you didn't have to bitch out on the pause. You'd have got that, whatever. Fine, still. Anyhow, so for me, my objective was to have more repetitions in reserve. My objective of an exercise like this is to not take it to fail, because, heavy loads with low reps and, taking your joints through maximal ranges of motion like that, like every tissue has a limit capacity. And that's how things break, is you take them beyond their limit capacity. So my objective is to not take it even to its capacity. Leave repetitions in reserve for these exercises. This is for strength development. So, I know this whole thing is about Tom Platz and leg development. So this, I'm doing it I'm a powerlifter. I focus on strength mainly, but I also want to build muscles. And it's not as if that doesn't stimulate muscle growth, but something that I will mention about the difference between machines and free weights is that balance thing that just happened won't happen in my leg press or if I did a hack squat or any of those machines. So that's one of the advantages of a leg press, any of those machines, is you don't have to focus on the balance. So there, a lot of my energy went towards the balance, and that's energy taken away from, targeting my quadriceps. Does that make sense? So that's where you have an advantage. Like, my bias is towards squats. I love that Tom Platz made that statement that squats are better. I think that they're better for me, but maybe not better for all objectives and all people. So in that instance, that was not the best way to build muscle. I didn't take the movement to fail. With heavy loads, I don't recommend taking those movements to fail. And I think I still think it has a great purpose. I think that was excellent for skill, excellent for building quad strength and teaching my body how to maintain technique, which is skill. Now, I'm going to show you the difference between that and when I do a low bar squat, which is if someone came to me and said, is a low bar squat, my objective is to build massive quads, and they showed me a squat, which is what I'm about to show you, the low bar squat with a hip dominant stance. I'd look at it and say, love the exercise, but not for your goal. If your goal is to build quads, it's like that'll build some quads, but that's not the best. That's a hip dominant squat, which is what I'm going to show you. That's how you use your strong hips. The more you use your hips, the less you use your quads. It is a good way of building hip strength. It's an excellent way of building hip strength. It's an excellent way of building bone strength, core strength, balance, coordination, sprint strength, jump height strength, all athletic performance, in combination with other exercises as well, of course. So if you want to jump high, don't just rely on a squat. Do squats to build those specific muscles that you're using in jumping, but then make sure you're combining it with jump work. Right? Your explosive work, your plyometric training. This complements the main work, but it is not the main work. Anyway, I'm happy I got that. I haven't touched that weight with a stiletto variation in a very long time, but now I have. And I look back and it's like, you silly boy, you should have paused the last rep. It would have been a lot cooler if you did. Whatever. I didn't become weaker because I didn't do that. It was just like a little bit of a lesson learned. Anyway, I'm gonna go and do some low bar squats and show you the difference in body position and talk to you about the difference that it has on my strength development and how it builds my muscles around my body.
Before you go,
yeah.
How would you put these together in a program, like a long-term program? Would you do them together?
Okay, so in this program, and quite often, I do low bar squat and a stiletto squat within the same session. But a lot of the times I usually don't recommend it, and it depends on how much volume you're doing. So here's the thing. A lot of the times when I program for someone, I'll only do like one barbell squat pattern, and then the accessories will be something easier. So if it's a barbell squat and you're going really, really heavy, that's hugely demanding. So I typically don't like to go demanding exercise after demanding exercise. But in this instance, I'm doing a demonstration for you guys, but I'm also minimizing how many sets. So if it wasn't a video for you guys, last week I did this for 2 top sets, and then I did 1 back down set with low bar. So really, really low volume. So in many instances, if I was to program, most people wouldn't just do 1 or 2 sets. I do, and a lot of the times for my elite level lifters, I only prescribe 1 to 3 top sets of your big barbell movements, because doing more than that can be hugely fatiguing. I'm not saying it can't be done, and I bet you most of you at home would probably look at 1 or 2 sets of an exercise and go, that's not enough. It can be enough, I'll tell you that. That's putting a long story short, it can be enough, especially for high level lifters. But I would say the most optimal way would be to do about 2 sets, 2 to 3 sets, 1 to 3 sets of your main barbell movements, and then your secondary exercises. So let's just say I was doing a good session, that's 1 to 3 sets over here, and then I'd probably go straight over to a leg press, a hip dominant style leg press, so that I'm combining or using exercises that complement each other, quad dominant movement followed by a hip dominant movement. Now, on the flip side of that, if I was to start the session, which I quite often do, with a low bar squat, which is hip dominant, I'd do low bar squats for 1 to 3 top sets, and then my accessory exercises would be a quadricep dominant secondary movement, which I'll show you the differences in foot position for the leg press so that you can determine whether you're doing hips or quads, and that's how I would typically program for those. But the fact is, the amount of times people say, can I do this in my program, whatever it is, and I'll often say, yeah, you can. Like, there's ways of doing 2 squat patterns. So the way that I'm doing 2 squat patterns in the same session is low volume on each and leaving repetitions in reserve, and it's good, and making sure they complement each other. So to answer your question, this is kind of one of those things where it gets hard to say, to give an absolute answer and say there's only one way of doing things. The fact is, yes, you can do a low bar squat and a stiletto squat in the same session, but they're 2 difficult exercises, and whenever you're factoring in 2 difficult exercises, make sure you're managing fatigue at the same time. So don't do a huge amount of volume on each, and don't do a huge amount of intensity or how close to fail. That's how we measure intensity and effort. Don't do a lot of sets to fail on those big compound movements back to back within the same session. It takes a long time to recover. Now I'm going to add in a little bit of science. Research that I quite often quote by Dr. Raya and colleagues, I believe it was 2014, where there was a meta-analysis on optimal volume for strength. So there's optimal volume for hypertrophy, which a lot of the researchers mutually agree on, 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week. But when it comes to strength, the recommendation was 6 to 12 sets per movement pattern per week. So not per body part, per movement pattern. So 6 to 12 was kind of optimal. So that shows when it comes to strength, the recommendation is less total volume than when it comes to hypertrophy. And what's the reason? The reason is the load that you're lifting with strength development is a lot higher. So typically 80% of your max and above is what we'd use for strength development. And for hypertrophy, they usually don't go that heavy. So strength movements like that are a lot more demanding, and that's where we have the extra benefit of adding in the machine exercises that aren't as demanding, and we can accumulate more volume, and volume does contribute to muscle mass and strength. So a bit of a long-winded answer, but that's what it is. Yeah, I'm going to change the barbell. So see that trick? Because I use a close barbell position. So I slide it across so that I can take that weight off, so that when I take it off, it doesn't flip the barbell. So yes, I am changing the barbell. So this is a weightlifting bar. So have a look at the blue sticker. That's what they use in the Olympics. Well, I think that they've upgraded their barbells and they don't have stickers on them anymore, because I'm going to show you, I have the upgraded powerlifting bar, which used to have this red sticker on it. So these are the old powerlifting bars. Used to have the red sticker on it, but now the new one does not. And the difference between the two is the powerlifting bar is thicker. It doesn't bend as much. So it's not as whippy, which is good when you're lifting really, really heavy weight. It doesn't shake as much on your back. But also the knurling is a lot thicker. So when I do a low bar squat, which is what I'm about to do, you need to grip it into your back. High bar squat, it's resting on top of your trap, so it doesn't need to be as grippy. And when I do a high bar squat, it just feels nicer to use the weightlifting bar. This is an easy variation, but I'm still going to warm up again. And I'm not warming up my body. I don't need to increase my body temperature. My body's warm. All I'm doing is priming my nervous system so I can accept the weight. Dinny J, bring in the goods. We got some, is that some coffee? Is it for me before I jump the gun and pretend you bought me a present? And you go, sorry, it wasn't for you, love. Thank you. I'm doing squats. So I did stiletto squat. I did a set of 3 on 200, which was pretty good. I haven't done that for a while. And now I'm going to show the difference between a stiletto squat and a low bar squat. Show the strength discrepancy between the two. So I'll whisper to you what my goal is, but we won't tell YouTube. 10 reps. Yeah. Huh? At 200. Yeah, which is going to be not enjoyable. It'll be enjoyable packing the weights away. Anyway, we won't tell YouTube that that's what my goal is in case I miss it. And then we'll just build our way back up to that same weight. And the theory, it's not this is theory, but it's going to be easier. 3 reps stiletto. Huh? 10, but then it's like you can't just laugh at 10 reps, that's hard. Yeah, I know that this is gonna fucking hurt. All right, what song have we got? We got a bit of Rollin' from Limp Bizkit. Let's get it, come on. We're getting this. We're getting this. Come on. Oh! I'm so happy that it's done. Do you know what I mean? Like there's my satisfaction. That's what, for me, my most enjoyable part about training is I'm going to go home going, I know I did great work today. But of course I can do that. Do you know what I mean? I knew I could. The nervousness wasn't from whether I could do it or not. The nerves were from this is going to hurt. Anyway, good. So there's a low bar squat. Now let me just tell you something. When Tom Platz talks about squat is the best for quad development, he's not squatting that way. That's not how you build quads. For that exercise, here's a rule. When it comes to building muscle, the muscle you're targeting needs to be the limiting factor of the movement, or the muscle that fails first. If I did more reps on that to fail, I wouldn't be able to tell you which muscle failed first. My whole body was tired there. It wasn't my legs, it wasn't my hips, my back, I don't know what it was. It was just hard. So that's not a good bodybuilding exercise. So what you want to do to make sure the exercise is good for bodybuilding is understand the muscle you're targeting, and that specific muscle needs to be the limiting factor of the movement. And I'm going to show you exactly why a leg press is beneficial.
So many reps in reserve.
There was reps in reserve for sure.
That was good.
But, thank you, bro. But I'll tell you something, you got to condition yourself. I haven't worked hard like this for a squat in a while, so it's like, it's not just conditioning your muscles to go to fail, it's like, that's stress on my whole body. My body has to go to work now. And, you know, I'm sure if I look back at that video, I'd be like, 210 for 10 I'd be able to do. You know, and then Probably more. Like I've done more than that for 10 for sure. My best is 300 for 10. How's that, Georgie? But that was with knee wraps. So with knee wraps, I get about 50 kilos. So for context, that's probably equal to me doing 250 for 10. That's insane. But I was a lot bigger and stronger then. Today I'm 97 kilograms. I would have weighed about 116 kilograms then. So 20 kilos, I'm 20 kilograms lighter than when I was at my peak in strength. But either way, yeah, those reps in reserve. Those reps in reserve, which is what I recommend when the goal is strength. Okay, so skill acquisition. So this is another topic that I'm going to briefly touch on. Do you train to fail or not? Well, the higher the complexity of the movement, the more recommended it is to leave repetitions in reserve. So free weights like that, don't take it to fail. The beauty of the machine is you can take it to fail because you won't break down technique and you're usually using lighter loads and higher reps. I mean, that was high reps, but I don't usually do 10s on a back squat. But you're usually using weights that are not going to injure you if you go to fail. Whereas with squats, you know, usually if you're doing the proper strength building rep ranges, if you take it to fail, there's a risk of, if you're strong enough, there's a risk of injuring yourself. So if I was to do 5 reps, I would say right now my 5 rep max would probably be, I don't know, well, today maybe 240, 250. Recently I did 260 for 5. So, you know, if I took 260 to fail, that has a risk of breaking down technique and injuring myself. Do you know what I'm saying? But if I was a little bit weaker, let's just say my max was 140, which would mean my top set of 5 would be like 110. You take that to fail, you're not going to injure yourself. You'll break down technique. You might drop the bar, you're not going to injure yourself. Unless the barbell smacks on you, but you know, like missing the weight, you won't. Anyway. We don't have to worry about that because we got it, didn't we, Musti? We got a set of 10. Our squat's good for muscle development. That squat isn't. I'm telling you how it is. I mean, it does build general muscle, like where? It does make my body stronger. It does build some legs, it does build some glutes, some adductors, some erector spinae, which is the muscles along your spine. It does, but not very well. It's just general. Like they'll all generally grow together. And I can get bigger and bigger, but a bodybuilder doesn't want to just generally get bigger. They want specific muscles to get bigger. That won't specifically train my legs. And if you look at the best powerlifters in the world compared to the biggest bodybuilders in the world, the legs on bodybuilders are way bigger because they use exercises that target the muscle, and the muscle is the limiting factor of the movement. Stop recording me. Yeah, I got 10 nails, more reps in reserve. I swear, during the set, I'll tell you what I was thinking on the last reps. I'm going to dump it from here because they're bump plates and you can. It's like, it's not dangerous to do it. But I was like, I don't even want to walk it back. This is too much work. I don't even want to walk it back. And then I did it. I'm like, I can walk it back. Okay, I'm not going to do leg press like my body's had it after that. I'm just going to show you the 2 different ways I do a leg press. And you know my opinion by now is machines have a lot of benefits. And when it comes to pure muscle building, I would say they have a bit of an advantage over the free weights, a fair bit of an advantage. But one of the biggest things that I love and that I factor in when I train is your enjoyment of what you do. And when someone just loves, like Tom Platz just obviously loves a squat, if you love an exercise or love doing something so much, you apply more effort into it. And on the flip side, if you hate something a lot, like that's me with certain exercises, I'm sure everyone's the same. If you hate something a lot, you don't apply the same amount of effort and you never really improve. So anyway, what I factor in is your enjoyment of the movement that you're doing. So if you enjoy squats, if you come to me and say, I want to build as much muscle as possible, but I also love squatting, I would say, well, then you're absolutely going to be squatting, and there's a way of doing it so you can build muscle, but I would still recommend you add some of this as well. Now, I'm going to show you the 2 different ways of performing a leg press. Just like I showed you with the squats, the first thing that I did was a stiletto squat, which is heels elevated, and that's a high bar position that allows me to maximize knee bend, so pressing the hamstring against the calf, allows me to target my quads better. So when I do a quad dominant first exercise like a stiletto squat, and I want to do a leg press or a machine exercise to complement it, I'm going to not do quad dominant again. So I did quad dominant with the squats. Now I'm going to focus on the second squat pattern, which is a hip dominant. Now the way I make this movement hip dominant is I have my feet flat on this board and I hold my feet relatively high and kind of wide. So I'll use the same stance as what I just did for my squats. And you can see I don't have a huge range of motion here, which is why I don't love this exercise. But anyway, that's how I would do a hip dominant leg press to complement my stiletto squat. Good exercise, So that's what I would use to complement my quad dominant first squat. So quad dominant squat patterns could be a front squat. It could be a high bar squat, just a regular high bar squat, or it could be what I just did, a stiletto squat. Now, on the flip side, if I was to start with a low bar squat, which is same stance as this, that makes it more hip dominant. It's slightly wider and it allows me to position myself so I push my hips back. So that's the first exercise of the day would be hip dominant. I wouldn't do a hip dominant secondary exercise. That is called exercise redundancy. I've already targeted those muscles. So what I like to do with my secondary exercises is target what I neglected in the main movement. What did I neglect in the low bar squats is quadriceps. How do I position my feet to target quadriceps? So the same as what I did with my stiletto squat, which is feet close and kind of like on the leg press it's low. But what I'm doing here is I'm putting my feet in a way where I can maximize knee bend, right? So this is quad dominant. Okay, so there are two different leg press variations. I don't want to stand up because my head's going to get out of the camera. Well, you're on there now? Okay, I'll talk to this guy over here. So that's two different leg press variations that are both equally as good, but they target two very different muscle groups. You want a program or a structure? If you do a stiletto squat to start your session, 1 to 3 top sets, and then do 1 to 3 back down sets on secondary accessory exercises on a hip dominant leg press or a hack squat or whatever the squat pattern. If you start with a low bar squat, a great way to start a session, even if your goal is to build muscle. It's not the best muscle building exercise, but it's enjoyable and it builds some muscle. Complement it with that second leg press pattern that I just did, which is a quad dominant, pushing through the toes, allowing full knee bend. That's a lot of talking, a lot of information. I hope you learned something, and I hope you understand my opinion is if ever you get the choice to choose one or the other, whenever it comes to logical explanations of exercises like machines or free weights, high bar or low bar, belt versus non-belted, arch bench press versus non-arch bench press. The answer is a combination of both. You don't have to choose one or the other. So is Tom Platz right? Yes, he is. And then you hear people that say squats are bad for legs. Are they right? Well, if you have a look at the way they squat, they probably don't. They probably lean further forward in their squat, fold at the hips because they have proportions that force them to not be able to get that full knee bend. Anyway, hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed. I'm out of here. Yeah. If people want to train with me, then you know what you should do is put a link in the description. That's what I do. I'm a coach. And of course, that's what I do for a living. So you can contact me anytime. Follow me on Instagram at Australian Strength Coach. Click the link and reach out and we can get someone to contact you if you want to be coached by me. If you don't want to be coached by me, just keep watching my stuff and just keep on learning. I teach all the good stuff. But some people just need that extra push, and that's what I'm here for. Thank you, brother.